Okay, so again, we are in app.js. What I have done is I have commented out exercise 1 and exercise 2. Now I'm going under components. I'm going to create another file, and this time I'm going to name it exercise 3. Okay, under exercise 3, I'm just going to copy paste what we're going to do here. In this exercise, we are going to focus on controlled components, use state, and forms. So for this one, we're going to create a functional component and name it login form. And then what we wanted to do is that the login form, it's going to have two input field. One is going to be username, the next one is going to be password. So username is going to be a text, and then password, that means that it won't display whatever is written. It's just gonna display dots or stars. And then the most important point here, which that means the control component, is that we want to be able to see whatever values written inside of these in this inputs in real time. Okay, now let's start. First step is we're gonna have to create a function, and the name of it is going to be login form. Okay, and then now inside of my form, I want to have two inputs. My first input is going to be, the type of it is going to be text because that is my username. And then I need another input. And this one, the type of it is going to be a password. So now I want to display this in my app.js because I want to see if it actually works. Again, don't forget, we're going to have export defaults because we're only sending one function, and the function is a login form. Then I'm going to app.js here. I'm going to mention that I am on exercise 3. Then here I'm gonna have my elements, but before I do that, I have to import it. I'll import login form, and that is going to come from exercise 3. Okay, so now I have access to, I'm exporting the login form, and also here I'm importing it. So I have access to my login form. So I'm going under H1 and I'm going to import login form here just to see if it works properly. What I forgot to do here is that you actually have to return these. I forgot to put this in return because my function have to return something to app.js. I'm going here and I see there are two empty input. So if this is a text input, so whatever I write here is just going to show up. And this is a password input. Oh, wait a second. Okay, I have a typo here, so that's going to be password. I go back here and I see that whatever I wrote is going to be dots. Okay, so now another thing that I want to do is that I don't want these two to be on the same line. And also I want, before each one of these input field, I want to put a label so it says what each one of these are. For that, for separating those, I'm going to put each one of these input in a div. Okay, and then if I just save this and look at it, now you see that each one of them are in separate line. So now before each one of these inputs, I want to have a label. So I'm gonna write label here, and this is going to be username, the password. Okay, so if we look at it again, now we have username and we have password. Then I want to be able to display in real time what the value of each one of these inputs are. So outside of the form, so now that I have to go outside of the form, see if I write something, I'm gonna get an error. So I'm gonna put all of these in a div because I can only send one element, one parent element. So I'm gonna create a div around this. I'm gonna create an H3, and the first one is going to be username value. And then for now, it's just going to be equal to nothing. And this one is going to be my password value. Again, it's going to be empty because right now we're not sending anything. So I save this. And when I go back here, I have these two. And what I want to happen whenever I'm writing something here, so for example, if I'm writing lucky here, it's supposed to show that I have wrote that word letter by letter, but it doesn't show right now. We want it to be real time, so it has to be letter by letter. So let's try to do that. So in order to be able to capture whenever I'm entering something in the input, I gotta have to have something called on change. This is a function from input, so that means that whenever I'm typing something, whatever changes inside of this input, there's going to be a trigger, and I can say whenever that happens, what you want to do. Well, what I want to happen in an input, I'm going to create a function for it. I'm going to go outside of the return, inside of my function, and I'm going to create an expression, and that's going to be const. This is going to be username tracker. So username tracker, if you remember, it's going to be equal to this function. If you remember, we said whenever you're having, whenever something triggers inside of an input, there is an event that is going to pass whatever inside of that input to my event. Okay. Everything it's going to be under any changes right now because I'm tracking on change. That means all the information from this input, it's going to be available until if under event.target. So right now I am going to capture that value and put it inside of, let's first create a variable here, username value. So I'm going to create a constant name username value and that, and then I'm going to have another constant another variable set password value. Okay, so I have these two variables here, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to get whatever this input sent in event.target username value. It's going to be equal to event.targets.value. So whatever I'm going to enter in that inside of this input is going to be available on their event.target.value, and I'm going to set it to username value. Okay. And then I'm going to create another one, the same thing for my password. Get the password value. This is going to be equal to event target.value. Okay. So now on change, I'm going to call this function. And again, I have to create on change for this input as well. So we be able to capture the changes whenever something happened inside of the password. So now that means that technically I have to have username value in here. I'm going to pass it here. And I'm going to pass the password variable here. So technically, whatever happens on change, whenever on change get triggers, I need to be able to go to this function, and this function is going to set the value of the username value to event.target.value. That means whatever was changed in this input. And the same thing is going to happen for password. Okay. And then actually, let me just set this to a value so we know that the initial value is coming from here. I'm going to say empty username, and this one is going to be equal to empty password. Okay, so when I save this, if I go here, as you can see, the value from these two variables are going to be sent to my app. But now, what if I start changing this? So I change this, but nothing happens. Again, I change this to whatever, and nothing happens. These passwords and username still is going to be the same as what it was set at the beginning. We are doing this loop. We are sending the password after something changed, we are going to the password tracker function, and all of these happens. But since we are not re-rendering these two H3 are not getting updated. So I create an alert here so we can see that this loop is actually happening even though the value is not getting updated. So I'm gonna here I'm gonna say username. I'm gonna say username function, and here I'm gonna say from password function. Here, if I write something, it says from username function. So that means all of this is happening. Okay. So on change, understand that something had happened, some change had happened to this input, but it is not able to capture it because the re-render doesn't happen. So React doesn't know that what change has happened to the input, but this function get triggered regardless. And after it's triggered, it's going inside of this function and create the alert. Okay, as you can see it here. So for example, if I write something in password, again, it says from password function. So it is getting triggered, but nothing displays because it's still the username is empty and the password is empty. The reason for that is because we're not using user state, and that means that we are not re-rendering the changes that have happened to this function. Okay, now let's change that and use user state. For that, I have to import use state from here from React. Okay. And then I'm going to create two constant. This is just an array. This is a constant that is an array. I'm going to create another constant. I'm going to create the same state for my password as well. And this one is going to be password value. And this one is going to be just pass update. And I don't need this anymore. So this one, I'm going to say empty pass. That is going to be the initial value of password value. My functions are going to stay the same. I'm going to get rid of these alerts because I don't need them anymore. So I still get the event, and this one is getting triggered. But this time, whatever changes happens, I'm going to use this function, username update. And that basically means whatever changes happen here, it's going to be stored in username value. And then again, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to use pass update. So this function is going to update this password value. So now I would be able to display H3 and H3. Why? Because now I have user state. That means my values are getting changed. That means it will trigger a re-render inside of this function. It's going to compare what changes had happened from before the value has changed and after the value has changed, and it's going to re-render those part that has been changed. So I'm saving this, and here it is saying empty username, empty pass. So it is very obvious that I'm sending it from user state. Now, if I write something here, for example, W, as you can see, this is getting updated because right now I am re-rendering. Okay, so for example, if I write hell yeah here, and if I write lucky here, as you can see, it is getting updated.